Hi, we're Standuo and my name is Atoka.
And this is Dana.
So today is actually a continuation of the previous episode which we talked about NYU Abu Dhabi, our first impressions and choosing our major. So today we would like to continue with study always and J-term. Do you want to talk about it?
In NYU Abu Dhabi, you can pretty much do up to 2 semesters away. And NYU overall has 11 global sites in Buenos Aires, in Paris, in Shanghai, in Ghana, to name a few. So, what about your study aways?
So I went to Buenos Aires, Argentina for my first J-term, and then for my second J-term, I actually went to Accra, Ghana.
Oh, wow.
And I'm actually an outlier because I guess in NYU Abu Dhabi, most people choose New York for their second study away. But then I actually wanted to do Buenos Aires and Ghana, which is a very different trajectory from everyone else.
Right, yeah. And for me, I actually chose a very basic one for econ majors. I went to London in my sophomore spring and then to New York in my junior fall.
Mm-hmm. So then what was your impression of your first study away?
So my first study away in London, I think I was able to grow both academically and professionally, and personally.
Of course.
And personally. So I took advantage of being close to the European Union. So I traveled a lot to European countries, and I remember one of the most memorable trips was in Paris, and I only spent, I would say, overall like 60 euros on my trip, and then I stayed over at a friend's house, and like it was overall very magical.
That's cheap. That's great.
Yeah,
so what about your professional development?
Professional development. So given that London is one of the most developed financial hubs, I was able to take advantage of it and attend different conferences and meet professionals who later inspired me to do business in life. And I would say that given that you meet only once for classes, one class is just 3 hours instead of going twice a week. You have a lot of free time, and you can pretty much make your experience as exciting as you want.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, and what about you?
So for my first semester, I went to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and it was actually my first time in South America in Latin culture, Latino American culture, and so it was just simply eye-opening.
Oh wow! And if you had to name one experience, what do you want to share?
Well, so if I had to choose one, I think what really touched me was me visiting the slum villages and the children there. I'm really interested in economic development and education for children. And so going to these slum villages, so what we were told when we went to Buenos Aires is that we learn a lot about these slum villages, but we are actually prohibited by NYU Buenos Aires not to visit these slum villages alone.
Oh.
And it's because it's dangerous, because we're foreigners, we look foreign.
Right. Yeah.
And so I didn't really get to have an opportunity to visit these slums, and it was just miraculously, I went on this trip during spring break, and then I just sat in front of this guy who actually also came from Buenos Aires, and he was actually a volunteer at a slum village, and so miraculously I was able to visit the slum village. I taught English, Japanese, but honestly teaching was something I could give a little. I just got so much from them, and it was just, materialistically they don't have so much, but then they're just full of passion, they're so cute, and they have so much willingness to learn, and so I learned a lot from them.
Yeah, that's amazing actually.
So how about your second semester? Yeah.
So my second study away was in New York, and I think because I was studying at Stern School of Business, academically it was very challenging, but I really enjoyed it. And then because it's also a financial center, I also attended different info sessions and talked to my professors who were super knowledgeable, and I was able to actually ask valuable life advices and also professional advices, and I think the most memorable part of New York is actually exploring the neighborhoods. And I was trying to figure out like whether it's city for me, like if I want to live here. And like I remember besides Manhattan, I explored Brooklyn and Queens. And I remember during my last days, we made 2-hour trip to Brooklyn Heights, and we watched the splendid decoration of affluent houses for Christmas. And it was very thrilling for me, and because it was also my first time in the States, I was really happy to spend Thanksgiving in an American family, go to Black Friday,
that's special.
That's special, yeah, and that's it. And your second city was in Ghana, right?
Yeah, in Ghana.
Yeah, how was it?
So Ghana was actually magical as well. I would say so. I've always loved theater, and I actually minored in theater, and so I wanted to actually join a theater production in Ghana, and I've always wanted to perform. And so what I did so I actually arrived to Ghana, and then I knew some local friends there, and so I asked them if they knew any theater productions I could join in Ghana, and then they told me about Robert Man production, and so I joined.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
And how did you do that?
This was also very interesting. So basically, I first handed in my CV. I think I went to the actual place and handed in my CV, and then they called me in for audition, and so I performed. I performed the piano, showed some talents, and I can't sing, but I can act. And so that's how I did the audition, and then I got accepted into the production. And I was the only foreigner in the Robert Man production. Everyone else was local Ghanaian. And honestly, this was just great because I got to meet so many local Ghanaian. Like I just got to meet so many local people. So many local friends, and I think I really blended into the culture just because I had so many of these friends. And yeah, I would just say that honestly, theater bonds people regardless of your background, culture, your ethnicity, and so I really enjoyed being part of the Robert Man production.
Yeah, that sounds like a one-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Yeah, like it's just great, you know?
Yeah, and do you also want to talk about J-Terms?
Sure. So for J-Term, I think we touched on our very first episode, but J-Term is a 3-week program, which happens in January. And it's actually mandatory for NYU Abu Dhabi students to complete 3 J-Terms. And so in my year, we could do 1 J-Term in Abu Dhabi, and then we could do 2 J-Terms abroad, meaning 2 J-Terms outside of Abu Dhabi. But then, things change, and so from Dana's year, you get to do 1 J-Term in Abu Dhabi, 1 J-Term abroad, but then you get to do you get to do 1 Abu Dhabi J-Term with a trip.
Yeah, it's just not that bad, to be honest. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the trip?
Yeah, so we talked about Sydney J-Term before, but for the J-Term as a trip, I went to India, and it was actually one of the most intense courses I took, because we only spent 5 days in India, but it was so intense. I remember we did everything, and we visited local preschools in underprivileged regions called Ananwadis, where we observed the teaching methodologies of instructors, and then communicated it to local NGOs, and also had a chance to interact with little kids. And I think one of the most memorable experiences in Delhi was when we visited a local slum, and it was a pretty huge one. It had I think 17,000 people in it, and the striking thing was that they only had a handful of bathrooms, but the community was so efficient, and they managed to collaborate and cooperate, and also. So everyone had a chance to use those facilities, and I was actually, I think, amazed by this community and learned a valuable lesson that day. And I guess the lesson is that no matter under what conditions you're living and what is your life situation, it's very important to keep your humanity and stay positive. And in that community, the kids were playing football, local youth were given different workshops, and teaching useful skills that will be applicable to increase your employment. And yeah, overall it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's also a life-changing experience for sure.
Yeah, that's true. And what about you?
So for my J term, I actually did my first J term in Florence, which I learned about Renaissance Italy. We visited a lot of museums because Florence is there's a lot of museums in Florence. And then for my second J term, I actually skipped it because I wanted to celebrate my coming of age ceremony in Japan, which is a big thing in Japan. And so I skipped my sophomore J term. And then for my junior J term, I took a diplomacy related course in Abu Dhabi. And then for my last J term, my senior J term, I went to Sydney, took the course about journalism, reporting Sydney. And I feel like I really got to know the city. And I think what's fascinating about J term is that it's a really good combination between academics and vacation. So in Abu Dhabi, it's just like work, 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 study, study, study. It's very rigorous, and there's not really much of like a breathing time. But then J term, you get to really enjoy the city, get to really know yourself as well. And so I honestly think J term is a really good combination of academics and vacation.
Yeah, it's actually a perfect program. I wish they extended it, but unfortunately we're graduating. She's graduating.
Yeah.
And I think that's it for today.
Yeah, so that's it for today's episode of Standuo. Please leave a comment below, like, and subscribe.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.